I'm the chairman of Enfield Town Football Club.
Paul Millington, how did you become the chairman of Enfield Town Football Club?
I was just trying to help out a friend at the time. He said, why don't we set up a new football club? And I said, I've got a bit of spare time over the next few weeks, got nothing to do, so I'd help him out, and ended up being vice chairman. Not quite like that, but it was pretty similar. I started supporting the club. I used to go to Kingsmead School, which was obviously the other side of the playing fields from where we are now, and lots of the kids there used to go and watch Enfield Football Club at Southbury Road at the old stadium. So I started going to watch when I was 13, 14, so that was early 70s, and having watched the club, I've become an avid supporter, following games all around the country, and it was a great shame when I heard that the old ground, the ground was going to be sold, and myself and a number of the supporters, quite a number of them, wanted to protest against this. So we set up initially as a protest group to say, this is wrong. You shouldn't be getting rid of a community asset like this. This is, this is part of the borough. The football club, Enfield Football Club, brought so much pride to the name of the borough of Enfield, and it was going to be lost. So we did what we could. So we started off as a protest group, and from there we eventually organised ourselves. I think we were very much a disorganised rabble to begin with, but at the time this was all happening, the organisation Supporters Direct was coming into being, which was looking to have a voice for supporters, so that supporters could, instead of just turning up to see their club and be and contribute for the supporters clubs, that their contribution would be a little bit more than that. They would have a say in the running of their clubs. So at the time, say we were this protest group, this new movement came into being, and we were fortunate that happened at that time. So they changed us from being a disorganised rabble into probably an organised rabble, and that's where we then decided, there's another way forward here, and supporters, can take the mantle up themselves, and if there's no choice, as which we felt there was, it's a long story, but unfortunately they felt that there was no choice left other than start a new club in the borough. Otherwise, senior football to the degree that we'd known in the past was going to be lost. So we set up the Enfield Supporters Trust. That moved on to setting up the new club, Enfield Town. I was part, as well as a number of other people of that organisation. I started off as the vice chairman, and was vice chairman for 5 or 6 years, the initial formation years. Dave Bryant, who was the initial chairman, felt that he needed a change, so I then stepped in as chairman and have been chairman since.
Do you enjoy it?
It's a wonderful nightmare.
Have you made good mates from it?
I think the fact that I had good mates, and that those friendships were made behind the terrace, in the terraces at Southbury Road, going to away games. The people that I've known since I was 13, 14, best part of 40 years now, and they were good friends, and we all felt passionately about something, and I think it all fell in place from the point of view we felt passionate about it and we felt able to do something about it, and of course, since then I've met some great lifelong friends. I think that and there's a great feel to the place. I think if you come along to a game, people that run the club shop that we know, have been doing it for years, people that are doing the turnstile, Dave who looks after the stadium, that everybody's just got that, the ambition and the desire is for the club to do well, and that's all we're about.
You must be incredibly proud.
I don't think of it in that way. I think that it was never a desire to be a football club chairman. It just happened. It just, circumstances put me in that situation. So proud from the point of view of what's been achieved, but it's been achieved by everyone. I've been the chairman, and I feel very proud that I've been the chairman. When I sit down on some of the events that you've organised, when you've had players here from the 60s, 70s who have graced Wembley, and they were heroes for me, and I feel very humble in their presence, they are still my heroes. So, you know, I'm a fan. So, you know, I don't, you know, from the point of view, yes, but I'm proud of what we've all achieved. I think it's been a fantastic effort.
And what makes Enfield so special?
Well, I was born here, went to school here, family here, etc. So, you know, it is where I grew up, so it's my home area.
Has Enfield changed much?
A great deal.
Tell me about that.
I think that when I was growing up, you know, this part of Enfield almost seemed nearly rural. You know, you go to Cheshunt and you were out in the countryside. Nowadays, it's very much more of an urban area. I think the population has changed, and so there has been quite a number of changes.
Tell me about where the love of football came from.
My dad was a great football fan. My family came from Islington. My dad was an avid Arsenal supporter, and so was his father. And they would tell me stories about, my granddad telling me about the story when he went to Aston Villa when Ted Drake scored 7 goals in a league game. And my dad telling me a story, he went to Highbury on the tight. This is the game before the Busby Babes sadly were lost in the Munich air crash when Arsenal lost 5-4 to Manchester United. And my dad started taking me to Arsenal from when I was 7 or 8. And his love of football was such that if Arsenal weren't playing at home, he'd go and watch Spurs. So he had a love of football. So that's where I've got it from.
Now, for young people, it's so much about a loyalty to a club. Do you think it's changed, or?
I think there's always been a loyalty to the club. I still support Arsenal in terms of Premiership clubs. Much to disgust of most of the people in this area, but that's what I was brought up with, and I think that people still tend to, once they adopt a club, stay with a club. I think what's different now for youngsters particularly is being able to see that at close range, because it is so expensive to go and watch a Premiership club. And of course people don't necessarily see it because they can watch it on the television. The television is quite expensive as well, so it's just gone up to such a level. And going back to the days when I used to go to Highbury, they were very proud about bringing players up that had come through their own youth systems. And the nearest you got to a foreign player for Arsenal would be Liam Brady or many players that they brought through from Ireland. But now I've been to Emirates on a couple of occasions to watch games, these League Cup games, and effectively they're reserves, and they come from Brazil, Germany, all around the world. So before you attach yourself to players, and perhaps the loyalty for players in the past, you'd get players that I knew like George Armstrong would play 700 games for Arsenal. You won't get that anymore. Very rarely do you get players that will stay with a club throughout. So that's perhaps where it becomes a little bit different from the day when I was a youngster watching football.
Tell me about your number one memory of football, number one thing, the number one memory.
That's a difficult one because I've got so many good ones.
Number one, first one.
Number one. I tell you, it has to be here when we beat Needham Market in the playoff final, because that was a culmination of so much work over so many years that we had brought this club back to the level I consider that we should be at the very least, and also in our own home. And I think that probably for me was the best moment.
That's a good memory. Have you made good friends from being involved?
Absolutely. I say right from the time when I was at Southbury Road, meeting my friends as a 13, 14-year-old, right through still friends now, and I'm still making friends. And you do. It's an outlet. It's an outlet where you meet people from all walks of life. And we've all got one thing in common: is that we want to see our local club to be successful. So, you know, even now, in the last year, I've met new friends. So it is, yes, very much a social thing, as well as being, obviously, you want the football club to do well, but it's not the be-all and end-all.
Where do you see the club in 5 years?
In the Conference South division, which is a division above where we are now, and holding our own.
Nice place to be. If you were to give some advice to a young person today who is interested in getting involved in football, getting involved in their local club, what would your advice be, and how can they get involved?
Yeah, it depends on what they're interested in, is whether it's on the playing side or whether they just want to be involved with the football club from the administration side. There's lots of areas that you can get involved in. I mean, we've had young Jack Lucas, who's been with us for a number of years now. He first came because he was interested in looking after the pitch, you know, and he's now done his training and you know, he's a qualified groundsman. So you can turn your hand to almost anything with your local football club. There is always something that you could find that they would accommodate you, whether it's the world of finance even, or you know, in the service trade. There is always something that you could do. So I think obviously it helps that you have an interest in football to begin with. And if you've got that and you've got other interests as well, it can develop into other things. I mean, we have directors and other people, members that have got expertise in different areas, but they can all use that expertise in helping their football club be successful.
What's been the biggest challenge that you've had as the chairman? What's your biggest challenge?
When we first started, everyone was on a high, and it was great. We got our own football club, our new football club. Everyone, and then we had to hit a plateau, and it was then difficult to, at that time, to get people infused again. And the way we had to get people infused was to show that this facility was on the horizon. We will have our own home, because it goes in peaks and troughs, like anything in life, highs and lows. And there was a low at one point, and I found that difficult to deal with, because I've got an enthusiasm that we can do this, and a drive that we can do this. And often we have too many people that look at the low side. And I think, well, look where we've come in the last 12 years. It's a very short period of time. You know, we are competing with clubs that have been in existence for over 100 years. We're at the same level. In fact, we're better off with them than them in many ways, in terms of what we've got as a facility and our fan base. You know, we've got a lot to look forward to. And I prefer people to be on the positive side rather than the negative side. But that was a particularly, I think, a bit of a challenge to be able to turn that around. I mean, one of the most encouraging things is to see how the youth sections have taken off. You know, we've had events over here whereby there are 100 kids turn up for the training, and that's great to see. And that's what we are about. We're a community club. We need to involve all the community. We need to include, you know, children that can play at a decent level, but also those that enjoy playing. You know, football is a game to be enjoyed first and foremost. It's nice to win. We want to win. It hurts when we lose, but it's ultimately, at the end of the day, it's something you've got to enjoy, and that's from the tone of also watching it as well as playing it.